Viewers 0. Let me, something's up with YouTube, it looks like. I guess you all missed the first 6 minutes of this thing. Is that correct? Can I get a mic check? Something's up with YouTube. It was not transmitting. Mic check, mic check. I've been talking for the last 6 minutes. Oh, man, that's annoying. All right, let's reel it back just a bit. I'm not going to go all the way back and cover what I covered earlier, other than the fact that the overnight session is saying that the market's got an incredibly tight range, 13.25 points. I did show you this. The summary sheet, unfortunately, I've had to kind of refresh Twitter for it to transmit. The main piece, of course, today is Powell's testimony. It's in the orange box up top, and really that's what the key is for today. We're all just standing by looking for that. That's what you should take away. The volume in the S&P is quite light at 164,000. Inventories long 98%. The market's falling a little bit. But the market hasn't really moved away from settlement all that much, so the inventory is not really important this morning, despite the fact that it's 98% long. We would expect a correction, but a correction in the inventory is is very small, in that a quick move down would correct it at the open. I want you to remember that 40.50 is key in this area. It was key last Friday. It was key yesterday. And we're opening right at it. So my prediction here, the expectation is that we would go sideways. A quick review of what we had yesterday. The expectation is we would open, push up into the prior range, potentially get to the prior point of control, and then pull back. The next key area is the double TPO high at 90.50. I was hoping for that on the long setup yesterday that I narrated in CT's Conversion Trading's Maven's channel, chat channel. But the expectation was for it to turn over and potentially take the settlement sometime later in the session and finish there, which is exactly what it did. What I was also looking for yesterday, if you forward in yesterday's video, is that if we do get initiative buying, in other words, if it does not close the range, then we would have some really strong, potentially really strong initiative buying to 90.50. That was the secondary scenario. And what it did is it played both. So here's where we are on the chart. The most important thing to take away here is we opened out of range. We opened in an open auction out of range. We pushed up and we finished in range, and we settled down just a little bit higher than Friday's settlement. This is important. This is relatively bearish for it to go all the way up. And what it did, what this says is it went up, it found the sellers up in the 80 zone, 82.50 to be exact, and then it rolled all the way over. It rolled all the way over and came right back to the prior day settlement. That doesn't bode well for longs, in combination of the fact that it's not pushing back into balance, having a pretty weak structure below from last Friday. So last Friday, we had a trend day up. We have single prints. It ran through areas without, creating balance or creating a temporary balance. So we have relatively weak structure below. And so if it starts to run, it could very, very easily run all the way back into the 40-20-ish area down here, 24.20, where we have single prints and that prior high. So let's put that down. Wow, that's a terrible 2. 24.20 is the target to the downside for the S&P 40, 24 to 40.20. The market's likely to be quite choppy this morning. It's another morning where it's advisable to just sit out until Jeremy Powell's testimony comes out. It's released to the press before he talks so that there are no surprises. Wait for that. There's likely to be some volatility off of that, and then we'll start to see if there is a strong hand in the market. We'll start to see which side that strong hand is on, and then we're just trading pullbacks or we're fading moves on the extremes if the market is balanced and we're looking for outside in trading. That's the bottom line for today. That's what you should walk away with for today. So yesterday, looking at yesterday, we opened up, we had a nice clean open auction here with a nice clean opening swing. Remember, no trading in this no trading in that first half hour or so. We held the opening swing, we kind of poked through a little bit, and then we had this impulse on the long side. You can see it's crossing the impulse threshold, which is the white line, 10 points. It's crossing that. So now we have a potential area to trade, and the area to trade is to get long the inside bar on the impulse, look for a retest of the high for scale. So I think the long was from 70.50. The long setup was 70.50 or so. 71, I think it was 71.50, 70.50 add, and then look for 73. Was this 73? That seems to ring a bell. 73.75. Yep. 73.75. Get most of your risk off. And then the idea here is to hold through the 78 and then push towards 90, 50. That's what I was looking for. And it was pretty decent until it came all the way back down and took this last low. This low here, that takes us out of the balance of the trade. And then from there, really, I didn't see very much until down here in terms of areas to interact. We had an impulse, we had a continuation, then we had a second impulse down here, and I was looking for pullbacks, and the only place to get a pullback is right there. I wasn't here for this trade actually, but that would have been a setup for me. We ended up with a neutral extreme down day. We took out the high, the IB high, we took out the IB low, and we finished below the initial balance. That makes it a neutral extreme. Technically, it's not a classic neutral extreme. And then we ended up finishing or going back to the prior settlement. Here we are. We held the overnight auction at bay imbalance for most of the session, and we are just now breaking away a little bit. Completely balanced trade, very tight. Unable to mount an attack on the 70 up here. To me, this looks balanced to bearish, but all of that is likely to get blown out of the water once Jeremy Powell starts speaking. Let's look at the delta for a minute, just for some clues. Delta so far for the session, small lots, which is the dashed orange line, are buyers. Large lots taking the other side, and then the very large lots were bullish early on and have been completely sideways since. So we have a lot of divergence here, and it's likely to continue to be choppy as the session progresses. So where are we in the bigger picture? In the bigger picture, this looks like a blow off top to me. We have basically a failed auction up there. By the way, Crude had a classic failed auction yesterday at the high. Crude appears having continued. I'll talk about Crude in a minute, but very, very classic. And then we came back and fell below this 65 area, back below the overnight session from yesterday. And so this to me looks like a bit of a head and shoulder kind of formation. And again, I'm looking for the 24 to be a target down here before we get back into the magnet, which is down at 4,000. So to me, this doesn't look too bullish given yesterday's action, but all of that could be changed with Powell's discussion. Remember to step back and see what the market has done. Step back and see the big picture of how the days have progressed. Where did we open? Where did we close relative to the prior session and relative to the current action? The most bearish part of this is the fact that we opened out of range, tested higher, and we finished below the open back into the prior day's range. To me, this is quite bearish. This is a market that says that we very likely found sellers up there in that 8250 area. So that's likely to carry over into today's session as discussed. Okay, so that's that. Quick look at the NASDAQ. NQ a lot stronger. Look at the NQ and where it got on the composite. NQ reaching this massive area up top down in the 12,540 area, really very close. The NASDAQ is relatively a lot stronger than the S&P and has dug right into this profile here and has almost hit that 12,540 before also coming back and finishing right on the edge of the prior range. And look at how it's holding. It's still holding yesterday's range. There's the NASDAQ is slightly stronger. Meta, of course, being positive today is holding this thing up a little bit, but the NASDAQ's in the same boat. The interesting one is crude. Crude, I didn't talk about it, but crude last Friday did something incredibly bullish. It gapped down in the RTH session. It had a gap down. It tested down below this low, okay, tested below the low, and then it ended up finishing at the top of the range, shifting the point of control to the high of the range. And then yesterday it gapped down again internally, an internal gap, tested into the singles, and then finished higher. The crude has gotten to the 80, which is a big area, has gotten to the 80 and is now pulling back a little bit. Crude is very likely to balance in here. Crude really showed signs yesterday of exhaustion with a one tick failed auction at the top. So if I expand this image here, I'll show you what a failed auction looks like. If you look at those letters, you can see, it's tough to see because it's yellow, but you can see that G period finished here. K period came up, took out G period by a tick, went all the way down, and then it finished relatively strong. But for now, crude is likely to balance out. Crude is likely not to keep running still during the session. Again, Powell could change all of that in an instance. Anyway, I want to tell you that, but I also want to tell you that this Thursday, I'll be on in this live show open to the public with Jared Tendler, sponsored by Convergent Trading. I'll be on with Jared Tendler to talk about trading confidence, recovering from drawdowns, avoiding tilt, and how do you stay motivated when results are not forthcoming. This is on Thursday at 1 p.m. I believe a lot of traders need to listen. Those of you who don't know Jared Tendler really should go look at his book. It's one of the key performance psychology books out there. And we'll be talking on Thursday at 1 p.m. You can, the link to go set a reminder to watch the show. This will be broadcast on YouTube. You don't have to sign up or anything. Point your browser to go to ct.pro/unleash-confidence. And I'll catch you there. Good luck, everyone, and we'll talk tomorrow.